If you're doing a long-term media plan, there are a lot of things you can do. Congratulate good coverage. Paul Ehrlich up at Stanford is someone I have this fight with, or I've had several times. He's an amazing guy. He's brilliant at so many levels, and he wants to write these great things and put them in the New York Times, and it has to be in the New York Times. And he'll send all these missives off, and the Times will say, oh, no thank you, and he gets furious about it. And I keep saying, well, you know, if your point is to communicate to people and you get in 10 regional papers, you're going to reach more people in the New York Times. But he just wants to complain about the media. And he just wants to sit back in his ivory tower again and be angry at what the media does. And there's a lot of reason to be angry at the media. I'm the first to admit that. But you can be angry, or you can try and make a difference. And one of the things you can do is call a reporter when you see something good. Reinforce this. Call their boss. Let them know that this coverage is immensely valuable to the public good. Another thing that you can do is you can call them about poor coverage, and you do this politely. You shouldn't use words like ignorant, stupid, references to their mother. None of that should occur, but to have a polite conversation and understand that reporters are generally thin-skinned and they may not like this. But you want to reinforce good behavior by telling them what's happening when they're doing something wrong. I do this in my community all the time, and I send off emails, and I've never once gotten a response back. But I don't care. I keep doing this because I want them to know that people are reading. And the reality is, a reporter will often become very defensive when you do that, but they want to hear it. Despite what you may think, reporters do want to be as accurate as possible. They're not out there just to put any sort of worthless stuff in the paper or on TV. Well, we won't talk about TV, but at least in the newspaper, they're there to try and present truth as they know it. And so whether they like hearing that they've done something wrong or not, let them know in a very kind and polite way. Those come together with this third point, and they are all about cultivating a relationship. One of the best things you can do long-term is cultivate relationships. And I've already, in my talk Tuesday, was challenged on this because in a lot of small markets you have the problem that reporters don't stick around. And that's true, and they go off. But you're at least doing a favor for the next market where these people are going. But more importantly, you want to cultivate these relationships because long term, this will help you a great deal. Did I mention I went to Ohio State? There's a guy there named Earl Holland, and Earl is the VP of Science Communication, I think. Earl is a legend in his field and amongst reporters. Earl is someone, he's also a friend of mine, I'll say that up front. I worked with him many, many years ago. But Earl is someone that as a reporter I can call and say, hey Earl, you guys got anybody who knows string theory? And Earl is just as likely as not to say, we got a couple people working on that, but you know what? They're really not the most expert. We've got this guy over at Northwestern who is brilliant. And you know, that's the guy you should talk to. But you call and talk to him about ice core sampling. He's going to say, oh yeah, Lonnie Thompson and his wife, they're the tops. You know, he does support Ohio State. This isn't an effort to push people away, but what he's doing is being truthful, being honest. And a lot of times the reporters will say, that's okay, I don't want to bother with Northwest, let me talk to your guys. But he's developing a relationship with reporters that has lasted for a long time. And he's one of the first people reporters think of now because of this relationship he's created. And so they come to him for knowledge. So you need to think about a long-term relationship where they come to you not just because they have a question about your SLU. They come to you because they have a question about science. What a great public service you can provide by saying, well, you know, that's not my expertise. Here's what I know about it. Here's some papers you might want to look at. Here's an organization you might want to call. Here's someone you might want to talk to. You're developing a relationship. You can take a reporter to lunch. You can start this by simply saying, no, you can't take a reporter to lunch. Or you can't, you can buy personally. That's right. It's the whole government thing. You can't pay. I understand that. But take $5 out of your paycheck and pay this reporter, and then put in a fake, well, never mind. Pay for the reporter to go to lunch. And often they'll say no, actually. But offer to do that. Take them out to lunch and have a conversation so that your first relationship building with this reporter isn't on deadline. It's not in a panic. It's when you have a moment to sit down and talk and get to know this person a little bit more. You want to give them a vested interest in talking to you and understanding your background. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. You want to become the devil that they know, and you're the one that they come to find out about information. Relationships are key to long-term media coverage. You want to become a trusted source for information. You want to be the person that they come to when they're looking for information on any science topic. And this is a tough one, but this is one I really push hard. You want to encourage your colleagues to do the same. We all know that some people are much better about this than others. Steve Schneider at Stanford is someone who's great at this. He has a paper called Mediaology. And I meant to try and find the link before I came, and I forgot. But if you search Schneider and Mediaology, you'll find it. And it's a paper written to scientists about why it's important to communicate science and how to go about it. And Steve's very good at this. And he says, you know, you're going to get out there and something stupid is going to happen. And somebody's going to say something that's wrong. You're going to get blasted at some point. You got to accept that. It's a reality. But the other reality is 95% of the coverage that he gets is well-produced, contextual, it's sound science. So forget about the other 5%. Focus on the 95% that you're doing and that you're helping and communicating things. So encourage your colleagues to engage the media as much as you can. You want to put stories in terms of people and not data. People respond to people. They don't respond to data. It's a difficult concept because, you know, scientists are like journalists and we typically don't like people. So we like our numbers and we like to focus in on those little things that we do so well. People respond to people. And I'm not saying dumb it down. I totally disagree with news managers, and the consultants are doing that less and less, Bill. They really are, because they're beginning to realize that that just doesn't make sense. You scientists have an immense amount of knowledge. As you climb that ladder, that becomes more narrowly focused and more narrowly focused till you get to the top of that ladder. I was on Tuesday talking about this and mentioned string theory, and everybody went, huh? The smartest people don't know everything. So it's important to put stories in terms of people that other people can relate to. And as they become engaged in that story, it opens their head to more information. The New York Times the Wall Street Journal is famous for this. And there's a name, it's like Wall Streetization or something of stories on the front page. I'm getting the hook. I'll go fast. I won't even tell you that story. Okay. Identify local connections to climate change. I tell way too many stories, so this may take a while. Identify local connections to climate change. People relate to things close by. It's a big problem up in New England where I live. Well, Eastern New York, New England, we all sort of consider ourselves part of that elite group. One of the huge things every fall, of course, is leaf peeping. The people coming up to look at the trees, the beautiful maples and oaks and the colors that they represent when the leaves start falling. And it's incredible. And millions of dollars are spent. Try and get a hotel room up there for anything under $200-300. It's almost impossible. Well, it's one thing to talk about polar bears getting stranded on ice floes. And that's a horrible story, and I'm not in any way demeaning that. But people go, oh, that's so sad. And then they go about, you know, driving their SUVs and filling up with the 50-gallon tanks. But then when you say to them, the shifting weather patterns are going to affect the maples and the oaks. And in the next 30, 40, 50 years, our trees will become Canada's trees. And our industry based around this will disappear. Suddenly, you've got people's attention. So you're putting this information in with local connections. And that's a critical thing that you can do. You can regularly take part in editorial meetings. This is something that's really important. A lot of people don't know about these, but newspapers have editorial meetings. And it depends on the size of the paper, how it functions. Some have a standing editorial board, others it's just different officials who come in. But they often meet perhaps once a month, and they're quite open often to having someone say, I have a topic I'd like to come in and talk to you about. So it may be some recent piece of research that you have. It may be simply to introduce them to your facility. But call them and see if they're willing to have you come and talk to their editorial board meeting. There we go. This is one I really love. Be creative. I don't know all the answers. What I've talked to you about today is part of it. But you need to be creative and find out what works for you. And in Canada, it's something called breakfast with eggheads. And I love this idea. And what they do is they gather legislators and staff members and media, and they invite them every month to a breakfast, and they have free food, and which is key, free food. If it's in the morning, free food, free alcohol in the evening. Of course, you all know that. But free food is important. They get now about 80 to 100 people every month. I think it's in Toronto, legislators specifically, who come to become educated on a topic. They want to learn about that topic. It was slow. It took them a while when they first introduced it to get those numbers up. Don't be discouraged the first few times. But try and find creative ways to engage the media, to help educate them, and provide them with information they need as they cover these important topics, okay? So, now what? Where do you go? The message I hope you take away from this is long-term versus short-term, and you really rethink your media strategy in a way that you can begin having a broader scale of effort in dealing with these issues. And I want to leave you with one quick story, because the big question is, when you hear all this, is, hey, it sounds great, but it doesn't really work. There's some people who went to Yale Forestry School. I forget who it was. There are a couple people around here who went to Yale Forestry School. Andy Revkin is the climate change reporter for the New York Times. He's a fabulous reporter, and if you haven't read his work, you should. He's very good. And I was talking to him about this issue for something I was working on. And he said that, I think it was Hal Raines, one of the editors, one of the managing editors at the Times, the head of the Yale Forestry School was a friend of his. And he went and sat down and had a 3-hour talk with him. And it was very direct, and he said, you're really missing the boat here. This is why this issue is perhaps the most critical issue we and our children are going to deal with over the next 20 years, and here's why you need to be covering it better. And they had a 3-hour talk, and it was a massive brain dump of knowledge and information and passion. Don't forget, passion is important, and you all have incredible passion, and that comes across. And he did this, and the editor was so moved by this, he immediately went back and commissioned a multi-part series on climate change. There's a sad ending to the story, which is he was soon after fired, and the series went away. But the point is, so I have to be in full disclosure, tell you the complete truth, but the point is, that sort of thing. He wasn't fired because of the series. He was fired for something else. But the point is, this can work. Developing these relationships, talking to people, not thinking short-term about your last project, but actually thinking about a more long-term result with these people and with journalists, and how you can get your message across in this broader context is what's going to help you the most. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate your allowing me to come here to speak. I hope this was useful.